Well, the way this went down was, at that time, it was 1982, I had put a jet in my Honda, and Los Alamos put it on the front page of the paper. It said, Los Alamos man, physicist at the lab, built this 200-mile-an-hour, Honda jet car that I had to work every day. So I was known in Los Alamos, the guy with the weird car, and you could hear it from a mile away. Anyway, the day that came out on the front page of the paper was the day Edward Miller, the father of the hydrogen bomb, was giving a lecture down there at the lab. And we didn't have much going on that day in our group, and I asked if I could go down there. And I went down there early, and Ed Teller was outside, leaning on a brick wall and reading the front page of the paper. Now, this is a guy out of history, so I introduced myself. Hey, I'm the guy you're reading about there. And we talked for a little, and it was cool. Fast forward to years later, I had moved to Las Vegas and had, left Los Alamos and, went on to other things. And I wanted to get back into the scientific community. I left to start other businesses and sort of thing. So I sent resumes out, and one of them went out to Ed and referenced our meeting, back in the day. And anyway, he remembered me and gave me a reference, somebody to contact at EG&E. And that's pretty much how it started.
So you get a phone call or a letter? Like, what do you get?
Well, I got what did I get? I got a letter initially and went down for an interview probably a couple times. And it was down at EG&G Special Projects, which was at McCarran Airport at that time out in Las Vegas.
And give you any sort of job description of what you were applying for?
They said it was for, I can't remember exactly what they did. This was a long time ago, but I think it was advanced propulsion, something like that. Something relatively generic, and they said it's in a remote area. It's going to be some days on, days off, and, it was kind of not exactly a full-time job, but you might have to be out there for 2 weeks at a time and take 2 weeks. So it was kind of the work schedule would be kind of broken up.
And did this seem attractive to you, or did it seem weird?
It wasn't weird, because people that work at the test site, anybody that's familiar with the area up there, working at the nuclear test site or at the Tonopah test range north of there, that's typically how things go.
So you had known about it from the scientific community? Because Area 51 at that time was
No, they didn't say anything
classified.
About Area 51.
Okay, so they
just said it's in a location, and you just know it was up at the test site.
Right.
So, but there was no mention of Area 51 at that time.
It's done hundreds of nuclear tests in Nevada. That whole area there's giant chunks of Nevada that people.
Yeah, there's a big piece of Nevada, and it's split up into different areas. There's a nuclear test site. There's Area 51. There's the Tonopah test range north of that. There's little sub-areas. There's areas where they test chemical weapons and things like that. So it's all broken up as a gigantic test area.
So take me first day on the job. You accept a job. They take out there.
Yeah. The first day, really, I didn't really get to see a whole lot. The first day was essentially just paperwork. That's when I flew into Area 51 proper. And I left McCarran Airport and flew what they call the Janet flights. Just, a passenger plane from Las Vegas to Area 51. And it was really just going through a mountain of paperwork that day, from security clearances to... there was like 2 or 3 hours of just solid paperwork, and that was really an uneventful first day.
When did things get weird? When did you realize? Like, at what point in time did you say, "Hey, this is not normal work. Like, this doesn't even seem like it's from this planet"?
That I can't tell you what day that occurred on, because so much time has gone by. The day kind of fused into one, and I can't separate days.
Was it a slow burn, or was there a moment of recognition?
Well, the first inkling I had was when I came in. There's this facility that is at S4. It's in the side of a mountain, and normally we had pulled in with the bus and gone around the front through a normal double door. This time that I went in, there were hangar doors open. I went in through the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the disc, the flying saucer that I worked on. I saw it sitting there, and we walked by it. It had a little American flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God, this finally explains all the flying saucer stories. This is just an advanced fighter, and this is fucking hilarious.
Right.
So I went by, I slid my hand alongside it. I got reprimanded immediately for touching the thing. And there was a guy, an armed guard, that followed us in and just said, keep your eyes forward and your hands at your side and just walk in the door. So that was the first time I had seen anything that was weird. It was some time later that I was introduced to my lab partner, Barry. And we had some of the subcomponents of the craft in the lab. And Barry was very anxious to get a new lab partner. So he was very talkative and couldn't wait to show me different things. And it was in the demonstration of the reactor working where my attention to where this is technology that doesn't even exist. So, I mean, that was the first time I knew that this is really something different.
Was it? What was it? What was it about this reactor that made you think that it didn't exist technologically?
Well, it was I actually have to back up because there were some briefings that I read it before that, certainly gave me the impression that this was going to be a weird job, but this was the first hands-on thing. This was a small reactor about the size of a hemisphere, about the size of a basketball, on a metal plate, and when it was running, it produced a gravitational field of its own. Now, this is something that we can't do. We can't produce any gravity. The only way we get gravity is from large quantities of mass. But there's no machine we can have that turns on that makes gravity. Like, you can turn on an electromagnet and it makes a magnetic field. We can't make a gravitational field. Anyway, this device was producing that. And Barry said, almost like he was bragging, go ahead, try and touch the sphere. And I couldn't. It pushed my hands away, just like two like poles of a magnet. So that was...
so like with two magnets and you're trying to press them together and they push each other?
Yeah, that kind of cushion feeling, but you can't get them together. The closer you put them, the more they push. But
and you felt...
Yeah, now there's nothing that does that. And that immediately got my attention going, wow, this is something else.
What was your thought? Like when you felt that and you knew that there was nothing that you were aware of that could produce
then
this?
That connected me to the briefings that I had on the first day at S4 was that, everything that I had read was apparently accurate.
What
I read, it was kind of an overview. This project was to back engineer the alien craft. And specifically, it was to try and back engineer and see if we can duplicate the technology with available materials. Now, to do this, they split the project into many different pieces for several reasons. They do this on all classes of projects, so nobody has the complete story. They compartmentalize everything. Now, we had the power and propulsion system. So what the briefings they gave me were like a 1 or 2 page overview of some of the other projects that were going on, on the craft. The only reason they do that is just in case what you're working on is connected intimately in some way that we don't know of to one of the other projects. You have to know their, their existence. So, again, they have everything from metallurgy to weapon potential of the craft, and these were all, essentially very short briefings, but mine was just power and propulsion, and it made it very clear that what I read was accurate.
So when you were reading that, before you actually saw the reactor, what were your thoughts on what they were describing? If you knew something like that didn't exist, and they're describing it in the briefings, what did you think you were going to see?
I didn't know at the time. I mean, I was reading, I thought, is this some kind of test?
See if you're crazy?
Well, not to see if I'm crazy, a lot of times they'll take in real high security jobs. I mean, they'll intentionally insert nonsense to them, whether it's to confuse the fact or if for someone was to leak it out, they would carry that information along and know where it came from. So I read through the documents, but, I didn't know if this was, part of some kind of test or, or what, or was it really realistic? I mean, I really didn't consider it being all that possible as far as being the actual thing that I was going to work on at the time.
They turned it on.
The reactor?
Yeah.
The reactor can be turned on or turned off in a lot of different ways. The way Barry showed me, the hemisphere is removed. There's a small tower in the middle. When you put the hemisphere on, the reactor activates. The reactor shuts down. It's load sensing. So if there's no load on the reactor at all, it shuts down. When there's a load present on it, it starts up again.
Load.
You can consider it an electrical load. So although it doesn't necessarily operate electrically, there's no wiring that connects any of the subcomponents together whatsoever. They just have to be in the immediate vicinity. The stuff is borderline magic, and that's essentially where we left it. When I left the project.
So there was no progress made.
There was some progress. I mean, we did identify, at least we think, some.
Go out into the desert, and they have some sort of a secret frequency. He didn't want to discuss it, that they can push out. They can send out the secret frequency, and it'll call them in, and that other people have done it simply by willing them in.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So sitting there and putting out this message that you're trying to communicate with them, and then eventually they show up.
Yeah, I can't speak to technologics, did psionics and all that kind of stuff, but do you want to hear my UFO story? Okay.
So, first of all, did you come up with this idea on your own, or did you hear about people doing this?
No, I heard of it from someone who's a quite polarizing figure in the community. I know you've spoken to him, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Polarizing people are right sometimes.
He's right on.
Right on a lot of
He's
things.
right on this. And no, I know that a lot of people have issues with Greer, but he was actually my intro into the UFO subject. So I'll tell you the story. Sorry about. Let me just take a sip of water, actually.
No worries.
So this was.
How did he?
It's a good question. He had a near-death experience, I believe, and from that was actually apparently communicated to and shown things that when he came out of that experience, he became a samadhi type, teacher.
Of course.
Got profoundly interested.
That's an origin story.
Brilliant story. My origin story was that I was really bored during COVID. No, so honestly though, it was actually in 2019 that I had experiences, and I do think that it's very important to lay a bit of foundational groundwork, because I think a lot of people will recognize well, and it's something that you mentioned with Bigfoot being in a high environment in the forest. Maybe that changes your perception. And I think that there's a degree of trauma and a degree of intense emotional moments that can bring about paranormal experiences. I don't know why, but it does seem to be something that a lot of people relate to. Yes, I was in a very time. Yes, I was having a very traumatic time. Or yes, I was going through something. And then this happened. And so for me, I was in my year of university and struggling. Just had a whole mix of personal issues going on. So I ended up kind of dropping out before I finished, and was just in a really bad rut. And my dad was worried about me, and he said, "Look, I'm out." This is a bit of a long story, but it's important to lay this foundation, I think, before I talk about what experience, because it plays in. My dad was worried. He was out in France at the time, and he said, "Look, do you want to come out and stay at this place with me and just, kind of relax, bring yourself back to normal?" I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I came out, and I've got these books that I've been reading. I think they'd be really beneficial. You should read them. And I was like, okay, I don't see how a book's going to change.
Does he recommend books?
Not massively, no. In fact, no. This was the only time he recommended books, which is interesting. And they were a series of books called Conversations with God by Donald Walsh. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Okay, so it's interesting. It ties into, I suppose, the channelled works, things that people believe they received.
Oh, wait a minute. I have heard of this.
He's quite well known. He's quite well known. He, was a radio DJ, neck in a car accident, became homeless, finally managed to get back on his feet, but was still wrote an angry letter to God, and then apparently woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning and was having voices literally telling him to write things down. And so he wrote all of this down, and this became Conversations with God. It's literally a dialogue of him asking questions and him receiving answers, which he interpreted as from God. Now, it is intense, and I'm definitely not here to say this is a Bible and everyone should read it. However, it was incredibly impactful for me at that time. The things that I was about, it was a very different idea of God, universal consciousness leads towards more than some weird patriarchal cloud living figure that just never made sense to me. So it got me in, and I was reading it, and it helped tremendously. weirdly enough, which I didn't expect. And that put me on a path towards researching metaphysics and philosophy and science and consciousness. And that's where it really started for me. But then a couple years down the line, I found myself in another depression, in a sense, because I felt like I'd accumulated a lot of information about various different topics that I thought were like these big questions and big answers and big esoteric things. And I just got to a point where I was like, none of this is actually helping me in my life. In fact, I'm actually feeling fucking worse for looking into all of this thing. I don't know how this is going to benefit me. So I was sitting on my bed one night, and I guess you could call it prayer. I just sat on my bed and said out loud to the universe, hey, I need something that validates all of this. Like, if I'm meant to be looking into these big picture questions about the universe and justness, if there's something tangible here, like I need to, and I want evidence, and I'm ready for it. So give me it. I want that. And then a week later, my best friend at the time, he was like, hey, I was watching this documentary. You've got to check it out. It's called Unacknowledged, by called Dr. Stephen Greer. And this is my first introduction to the UFO subject. So I was like, okay, sit down and watch that. Very good documentary. All of these different, high-level officers and missile launch guys talking about UFOs. It got me in. And then near the end of that, he brings up this concept of CE5, initiating contact with these. You can actually have your own experiences by getting into a particular meditative state. If I hadn't been making that rest on my bed the week prior, I probably just would have watched that documentary and gone about my life. But it felt like a very strong message to me personally, because I've been asking for something to validate these ideas around consciousness. Now there's a guy saying, yeah, you can actually have experience by going out and attempting to, ask for one.
So talk me through the process of actually doing that.
So
Did you get it on the first try?
No.
How many times did you try?
It was a weird gradual thing where things happening in the sky that were enough to keep me going out, but not enough for me to be like, okay, this is legit.
So how many times did you go out before it worked?
Before I saw what I really, really saw, probably about a month of going out. I was seeing things, but they weren't. It was kind of just enough to make me like, okay. Lots of what the contact community call flashbulb, flashes of light in the night sky in a void of space, repeated without any discernible object attached to it. Just one flash, and then send a thought, another flash, send another flash. And this happened multiple times. I've been someone who watches the night all my life. I'm used to seeing satellites. I know what iridium flares are.
For?
Maybe an hour, 2 hours,
And so you sit down. Are you seated?
No, I'd usually be standing, neck craned to the sky, but I would be...
Why don't you get a lounge chair?
I know. I don't know. I don't think about things properly sometimes when I do
How about down on the ground?
Just lay on the grass,
Don't
right?
you get a view of the sky?
Yeah, but it's cold in England, and it was wet, mildewy on the floor.
It
was not...
Get a tarp.
Yeah. But I was essentially, because of, again, being asking the universe for something. The universe seemed to be some sort of response. It kind of lit a fire up under me, and I started going outside. And a lot of people, like even Greer, has this incredibly, complicated method using samadhi and doing various things. I didn't do any of that. I just breathed in through the nose and out through the mouth. I felt very calm, and then began to very clearly model my thoughts around the concept of I want something to respond to me. I would essentially visualize that was emanating from me, that these thoughts were emanating from me. And it didn't take very long before I'd have flashes of light in the sky that just seemed weird, because I've never seen anything like that, or an incredible influx of what look and behave like satellites, but just at an incredibly high level, where it's just like, what's going on here? And it just felt like a kind of step-by-step progression until August of 2019. I had 4 incredibly vivid and real experiences with orange orbs of light. Really profound.
Whoa.
So I was outside. At this point, it became routine. It was in the summer of August, and it was relatively warm, so I was out doing this quite a lot, seeing little flashes, seeing things in the sky, trying to figure out what exactly it was that I was seeing. And I was standing at the back of my garden looking towards my house, night sky, crystal clear. And I saw at the beginning a flash of light in the corner of the sky. So I looked over and I saw this flash, another flash, another flash, and it was just blinking, but it was static in space. And then it started moving down. Every time it blinked, it would move further down. And I was observing this. And then it settled above 2 stars and kind of created the apex of a triangle. And it was just flashing above these 2 stars. And I was watching this for a while. And it happened for long enough where I just decided, all right, thank you, whatever you are. I'm just going to keep panning around the sky here and looking around. And as I panned my head, I saw that there was a cloud, but I didn't really look at it. And I turn around here, come back, and I see this cloud again. And this time I really look at it. And this cloud, Joe, had, so strange, it's like a dark cloud, but when you stared at it, it had a stacky appearance. It's very hard to describe other than imagine a light overlay of TV static. There was particles, it was agitated, it was shimmering. It was something, not a cloud, like certainly not anything I've ever seen in my life. And if we pretend this microphone is my, and this cloud is here, it's drifting this way. So eventually it's going to drift past my house and go this way, at least according to its natural trajectory. It gets to my house, right angle turn, and it starts coming towards me. So eventually it's going to be above my head, this cloud-like formation.
A cloud does a right angle?
As in 90 degrees. Going like this, and now it's going like this towards you. High up in the sky, but it's now in my path. Complete 90-degree shift from its trajectory. And I saw it, like a jarring, bloop, now it's going this way. Okay, so at this point I'm rooted in place. I'm not really scared, but I'm shocked at the fact that this thing did what it just did. And I'm watching as it's coming closer and closer, towards where I'm going to be. Eventually, it's directly above my head. It sounds so crazy. And, Terence McKenna said something like this. He was like, if you tell the unvarnished truth about a UFO experience, you'll be taken for a fool. It's like, it's true.
Yeah.
If you just tell people what really happened. But this is what really happened. So this cloud comes above my head. As it's directly above my head, this cloud like sucked into itself as if there was a central vacuum, a central point where it just got sucked into itself. And it revealed a triangle formation of about 25, maybe 30 orange orbs of light in a triangle. And this triangle, basically the cloud triangle was revealed. It kept moving. I had to turn around and watch as it went off in this direction. And as I was watching it, I could see that some of these orbs were actually swapping formation, swapping position in this formation. And that was the first time I saw them. I saw them 3 other occasions, all within the space of a month after this. Weirdly enough, I woke up the next day, and this is the only element of the story, as crazy as the whole thing sounds, is the only element that makes me personally uncomfortable. I was getting out of the shower, and as I was drying myself off, immediately noticed where this tattoo is now. There was a triangle mark of three red marks, one here, one very vivid, like the
and you covered a tattoo?
Well, it faded. It
Did
faded
you take any
over.
pictures of it?
I have taken pictures of it. Yeah.
Is it clear?
Yes.
Can I see it?
I can try and find them. Yeah, I haven't got my internet on right now. Jamie, if you go onto my X account and just type in J. Anderson marks on arm, maybe that will come up. I'm sorry, I should have really sent that ahead of time, but I do have images online. People have seen them, and I've done it many times.
Did it look like a wound?
The
Look
thing.
like a
So-
tattoo?
So 3 red marks, no scab, no itching, no feeling of discomfort. There was a slight shine to them, as if it was almost like a healed over burn, and this was vivid. It didn't dissipate for over a year. It was on my arm for about a year before it faded away, eventually away, and then I got Hermes Trismegistus tattooed on my arm. But weirdly enough, I got this tattoo and then got invited to Egypt. But yeah, I had these experiences. I had another experience where they came down and hovered above my house.
Can I ask you this? So these orbs,
Yeah. There you go.
Wow.
Thanks, Jamie, for that.
That is.
Yeah.
It looks like you burned 3 cigarettes on your arm.
That's what some arsehole on definitely claimed, but I didn't.
Well, that's what I say too if I was an asshole online.
Yeah. This
That's
is
crazy.
Yeah,
Very
I'm
weird.
not particularly comfortable with it. I don't know what it really means. I'm a bit of an idiot, Joe, because I should have a dermatologist. I should have actually had someone
You got
look at it.
but like cattle.
I think, and at the same time,
Let's keep an eye on this one.
can I even be mad? I was like, show me, give me evidence. I want to sign. Well, fuck it, fine then. Psst.
Right.
There you go, dude.
I would say whatever that is on your arm, who knows? Maybe a dermatologist explain it, it's just a coincidence. But the actual thing itself is far more interesting to me. And like, because one of the things that people always say is, if they were out there, what wouldn't we see them? Like, God, if they could come here from another dimension, or if they can come here from another planet or another solar system, don't you think they could probably hide? Like, we're pretty good at hiding. Like, don't you think, like, we have technology right now, like the stealth bomber stuff, that diminishes the radar signal.
Exactly.
Like, you can't pick them up on radar. So why would it be impossible to somehow or another manipulate your visual field, project what looks like clouds on the outside? We know that we can do stuff like that with plasma. Like, they have these plasma things that could spin in the sky.
Absolutely.
And it's weird. They can make objects out of them.
I wonder if that was plasma. I actually do wonder if the form of self-organizing plasma, because that's definitely something that people have looked into quite extensively.
Maybe plasma has intelligence.
Yes.
There's some.
Yes, and the, perhaps these are a form of individuated plasmic intelligences that can interact.
Way more fascinating when someone like you talks about it versus some fucking random kook. You know, that's what makes me incredibly interested, is just your credibility and the fact that this is not, you don't have a history of seeing wacky shit that other people don't see.
No, just this one.
But it's on video, and that there's other ones as well. It's really strange. And I've seen people try to explain it away, and what I don't like about when they explain it away or attempt to explain it away is that they're trying really hard. They're not going, who knows what this fucking thing is? They're not looking at it like cleanly. They're looking at it like a quote-unquote skeptic. I don't like the idea of being a skeptic. Not that I don't think you should be skeptical of certain things. I certainly think you should be. But there's a lot of people that brand themselves as skeptics. And I think it's a lazy way to look at things. I really do. Because I think you're just looking for the holes in things without looking at it objectively. If you wanted to be a scientist, if you wanted to be someone who is a fan of science, then you have to look at it as a thing. Like, look at this information and let's study this without any bias, any preconceived notions. I don't think they're doing that. They're looking at it and they're trying to find a way where they can justify that it's fake. And they're just doing all sorts of mental gymnastics to try to make it fake. That video that you show where that thing slips off to the left and takes off at incredible rates of speed, that alone should freak people the fuck out.
Yeah, because people confuse all the time. Like, we took the video. No, it was Andrew that took the video. We watched it for 5 minutes with our eyeballs, and there was 4 of us. And we all have the same story. We all saw the same stuff. We all came back and looked at each other and scratched our head and said, WF, serious? What was that? And then what do? You move on. Or saw it again. I imagine they probably saw him on radar that, but I think
they're probably seeing radar all the time. They just don't bring it to the attention of the general public.
Oh yeah, because if you don't, for a ship, when they see something and you go, what is that? They don't have any way to go out there and look at it.
Like, when you're talking about, they were informing you that they were seeing these things previous to your mission. When you're doing this exercise and they let you know that they're seeing these things, did you say, hey, how frequent is this? Is this something that happens all the time?
I didn't get ours was more of the moment of, when he's telling us, hey, for the last 6 we've been tracking these things.
Right.
And we don't know what they are.
But you don't know whether or not it was just those 2 weeks, or maybe it was a year ago. There was other similar situations, or
there's other situations that have happened out there, but I would say, for this, I don't even know how to take it serious. Yeah. And we have a tendency, if we don't know what it is, if we just ignore it, it'll go away. And I joke, there was an incident it's probably not too far off the same time frame, where I think it was like the Constellation was doing her workups before she got decommissioned, and a Soviet Oscar-class submarine surfaced behind her, right? And then it's go to battle stations, World War III. How did this foreign submarine get in our area and has been monitoring our workups? That's a big deal,
right?
I said, but now we go out and we have these things that are coming at will, and there's nothing we can do about it. We don't know what they are. We have confirmed sighting by 2 aircrew, 2 planes, that said, look, this is an airplane, this is not a weather balloon, this is not a blip, it has performance well beyond, and the airplanes that we were flying at the time were literally brand new Super Hornets right out of the Boeing factory. I mean, these were brand new, first Block 2 series that came out. And you go, why wasn't something done? It's like, we don't know what it is. I think it's good now, the moves that have happened over the last, 2 years since the original article came out that, now there's a new reporting for the pilots. The Navy's acknowledged, hey, these things, we don't know they were. They're starting to take it serious because I know there are other events that are not out recent where people have been called in to go, hey, I've seen this thing. So the investigation process is still going on. Military doesn't stop. Even if you take funding away, we don't stop. Not until we're told to stop. So, what's going on? You go, well, ATIP ended. They spent $4.5 million a year on it. I think it was $22 million over the 5 years. So you go, what are they doing since then? Well, I'm pretty still people looking at this, and there's still people that are taking this serious. I'll tell you that I won't get into specifics, but there are people inside the government that are taking this serious. And I've been down to D.C. twice to talk to folks, behind closed doors to go because they want to hear the story. And I've got a lot of, you got to be joking. I mean, this seriously happened, and I'm like, yeah, it did happen, and it is real. What are you doing about it?
So what kind of are you talking to?
High-level government officials, let's say. And most of that is because that conversation is between me and them, and I don't want people speculating, but you can say high-level government if I have talked to.
Well, that was always the speculation about, what would someone do if they became president? Well, the first thing I would do is I would tell everybody about the UFOs. I would ask immediately what's going on. And I always thought about it. I said, how many people actually know what's going on? And how much of the information? I mean, it's not like if they're dealing with something like this, like your experience, it seems like what you described is what is known. So it's this anomalous event where this thing defies our current understanding of technology, and then it's gone.
Yes.
And so what do you have? You don't have anything else other than that. Like, what other information does anybody have?
Well, I would say this because I've talked to Bob. We did
Bob Lazar?
Yeah, we did an event together. And I'll leave it to everyone it's up to you to believe Bob. I'll say this. Bob's a normal guy. Bob's not crazy.
He's not crazy at all.
Not at all.
That was the thing about talking to him.
But when you look at it and go, because I said, what he describes in the technology when he talks about his story, I said, well, do you honestly think we could, reverse engineer it? I said, how long do you think it would take us? And his response to me was another 100 years. Dave, it was so far beyond. He goes, the stuff that he says he worked on. He's like, he was on your podcast because I watched it. Hey, there was no wires, and because I had asked him when he said you first described the ship that he got to see, he said, I used to say, they built it and then it was like wax and you'd heat it up. He goes, now I would say it was built with 3D printing because now 3D printing we can build things literally from the ground up, and it's basically built as one, not panels, no rivets. It's just made. Right. And so when you talk about that and you go, well, it's still another 100 years. So you go, well, what if you had the technology? We still, if what Bob says is correct, we still don't understand it. And how fast would it take us to understand that? I mean, if it's driven by something that we don't even have on Earth, which is when he talks about that element, we can't create it. We can create it for a microsecond, and then it decays, and we go,
element
okay,
115.
Yeah. So, I think we're still a long ways off. I'll argue with the people that go, are we really alone? I was telling Jeremy we used to go out on goggles. And out in the Pacific, there's no light pollution.
Goggles?
Night vision goggles, so we can see. Well, you go out at night, I'd be on like a tanker hop or something, just hanging out, not doing anything, driving around in circles with the autopilot on. You just turn all the lights down in the cockpit so you have no night pollution, and you just roll your head back and look up. There's billions and billions of stars out there. And, I always look because I'm like, are we alone? And I look up and go, well, if we're the only ones around, and I'm looking at it's a pretty sad place. It's a pretty lonely universe. I asked my astrophysics prof that once. I said, "You believe in extraterrestrial life?" And she, "Of course not." And I said, "Well, there's billions and billions of planets. You're it." I mean, just the probability of it is you'd go, "Oh, there's probably something else out there," and I'm not crazy. I'm opening up the possibility that we are not the only planet that has life on.
I think people don't like to seem silly. They don't like to be foolish. And I think when people start talking about anything that's not proven or anything that's connected to a bunch of loony people that are making up stories, which UFOs certainly are.
Yes.
UFOs are connected to so many people that have made up so many stories. What was that gentleman's name from? You would know that guy. He was from another country. Billy something or another.
Oh, Billy Meyer.
Billy Meyer.
Myers, yeah.
Seems 100% full of shit.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah. He's proven
Yeah.
to have done tons of hoaxes with this, but here's the deal. Sometimes I think people have a real experience, and they're always like chasing that dragon, and they get UFO disease, and the brain goes fucking berserk, right? There are people that have had profound experiences, and then they can't ever replicate them, so then they just start going crazy. And I don't blame them for it. But you got someone like Commander Fravor, when he saw that AAV, anomalous aerospace vehicle, his reaction was, I want to That's a pretty cool reaction. I'd like to fly it.
Yeah, imagine flying that thing.
Well, that's what my buddy, who was my XO at the time, Dell, back after all this happened, he looks at me and we're just standing in the ready room and he goes, hey, dude. I go, what? He goes, what do you think it is? I go, I have no idea, but it was pretty freaking impressive and I'd like to fly it.
Of course.
And he goes, it was, you know, it's just like you always want to fly the coolest thing.
Of course. Yeah, of course. You're a driver. You want to drive the fastest car.
That's it. And you look at it and go, well, that's something we don't have.
Yeah.
This idea, you know, maybe we're not alone, that some of these other stars have planets that are maybe technologically advanced. So the next thing people say, and, you know, new eras are going to say, well, they're not coming here because the distance is so vast. Hold the fuck up. From the very beginning, when Bob Lazar came forward and talked about field propulsion, gravity propulsion, distance becomes completely irrelevant. So if we believe, and the radars are right, and Commander Fravor saw this thing moving like a ping pong ball in a glass of water, it's gravity propelled, that's why you can make those maneuvers without exploding, okay? Then distance becomes completely irrelevant for travel. You're literally warping time and space. You're falling into place.
Well, it's like the idea of showing someone a video on your phone long before video was ever invented. People would be like, what are you talking about? Like before photography was invented, which is shockingly recent, right? You had to draw pictures of things you saw. Just like those people that drew or painted those images of those men and whatever those things were with Christ in the background. The idea that we could understand what some insanely impressive technology from a planet that is nowhere near us could manifest. It's nuts.
Yeah. Bob Lazar talks a lot about this. Remember, he's a young guy, right? In 1989, he gets shown something. And all of a sudden, he's trying to interpret it through 1989 technology. So he said it looks like it was injection molded because that's what he had. And then I sent him this thing about nanotechnology and, you know, working towards an atomic printer. He's like, dude, that makes a lot more sense. So he has to view it through where he saw it in 1989. However, I will say this. It is my knowledge that we understand exactly how these craft work. Our one limiting factor is our material science. We can't replicate, not the fuel source itself is another.
When you say we know exactly how they work.
Yeah, it does our laws of physics, this concept of amplification of gravity, this concept of gravity propulsion. We understand how things can move from point A to point B almost instantaneously. Our physics doesn't disallow it, but our material science and the fuel to create that machine that we have machines from other places. So
what do you mean?
Well, Bob Lazar, whether you believe him or not, there was a program. I have other witnesses that I will be bringing forward about S4, where he worked. We have craft.
You have other witnesses that worked with alongside
No, people
Bob?
that corroborate Bob's account in that they saw him get on and off the red and whites, the Janet flights that come on. Somebody that went to Papoose Lake and was stopped by non-military guards at that time, people that were aware of Site 4 and ET exploitation projects. One is an SR-71 pilot that I've been talking with for a couple years. So these people are coming forward now, and it's like I'm sick and tired of doing it, these little nitpicky things about Bob. Okay, there was a program. There was a back engineering program. They've admitted there are materials. So this is like the metamaterials you heard about in the New York Times, all that. We have materials associated with UFOs that are interesting.
What is that talking about?
So this was something that was launched in the first New York Times article, I believe in December of 2017, that there is studies being done right now on materials associated with UFOs, right? So actual metals that have come off of, you could say, crashes or
Now, who is that explained that there was something, they were with Eric Weinstein, that was explaining that there was someone who reportedly has something along those lines?
Jacques Vallée has 17 samples.
17 samples. How does one 17 samples?
Well, Jacques fucking Vallée, right? So he is the guy first ever for the United States military created a computer program for the study of UFOs for Project Blue Book. So he's an old school guy. They modeled him after, in the Close Encounters movie, it's modeled after Jacques Vallée, the French guy. So he's kind of like been involved with this. He's access to government databases than any of us. He went around, collected samples from known, crashes or like when things will come off.
And what's the conclusion?
Well, they're studying them right now. There was just something on Fox about it. They're studying some of these materials and what they will find, because the ones they're talking about, I actually took to New Mexico and had 5 scientists study it about 5 years ago. I got my hands on it, got to study it. The famous parts they're talking about now. It's layered. And the way it's layered is what they're trying to see if it's anomalous elementally, or the way that the elements are bound together, and also the atomic level of layering is what's interesting. We'll find out if it's interesting.
Explain what you're talking about. What is this thing that you saw?
Okay, well, there are a lot of different samples, but when you get a sample of something and you can see...
How big are these samples?
The ones that I looked at,
yes.
They ranged from about this size down...
audio.
They ranged from the size
of an orange?
Yeah, size of an orange to the size of a quarter. These are materials, right?
And are they materials from ash?
So that's allegedly, or there's a known crash. This is in the public domain rather than government control. So what I was looking at, or having the scientists look at, is isotopically and elementally. What are the elements that are in this? Are they engineered?
And what's the conclusion?
Well, I'm not. I'm going to leave it to the people that are doing it now, who have much better machines than I had access to.
Do you know any cliff notes?
Yeah, they from what I understand, there's atomic layering. There are levels of it, like we do with graphene. We lay down these layers that are basically oriented at a certain degree. That's how you get a superconductor or something like that. If you take a piece of graphene and it's highly machined, so doesn't deviate from that atomic layering, you can push it right through ice like a hot knife through butter. It's the weirdest feeling in the world, because you just take this piece of what feels like graphene and it just goes right through butter, because it's a superconductor, and the heat from your hand melts the ice. So that is a metamaterial. It doesn't occur naturally. Humans created it, and it has special properties because of the way it's atomically layered. So if these materials are from somewhere else, then we suspect that they're going to be highly machined, that they're going to be created for special use. So my whole point is, our material science has not caught up with the physics that we understand for these field propulsion systems. I'm just telling you, believe me or not, but you'll hear more about it, that our material science in 1989 and today is our limiting factor. And as our material science gets better as humans, we know how these things work. Now, the fuel source, that's a whole nother conversation. But as far as creating these machines, that's what we're trying to do. That's why there is secrecy. We're trying to exploit the technology, because whoever exploits it first wins. It's a game changer. We don't want Russia to do it. We don't want China to do it. If we had a non-reactionary propulsion system, the world would look different instantaneously.
Well, believe it or not, I'm not into UFOs. I don't follow stories or...
Even after your experiences?
No, I'm fascinated with the technology, and it irks me, like every night I go to sleep, that that it was my own doing, essentially, that prevented me from continuing in the project. I mean, it's that to be on that cutting edge of technology is so alluring to me.
Right.
But by the same token, I don't really care that there's aliens or where they come from. I mean, the prize is the technology, and that's what I'm fascinated by. But so I don't listen to UFO stories and that sort of thing. But George Knapp is, he's the guy that has the contacts and tries to thread everything together. And what he recently told me is he found, I don't know, it was either documentation or people that he spoke to. It's that the existence of this project, the project that I was on, it's something that they seem to take out every 8 or 10 years.
So that's a very specific, and this is actually, this is the first time I'll be very clear with people about it. It's a big topic of conversation right now. It's called the Wilson Memo. You can look it up. Admiral Wilson met with a scientist who's actually was featured in one of my films. Everybody has been debating whether or not this document of a conversation with a sitting admiral at the time is a real document. It's an actual conversation that happened, and this document is real. Everybody wants to know. The world is going crazy right now in the UFO world. I'll tell you straight up right now, I'm in the position to know, and it is a real document that it is real. So the conversation you read in that conversation was had. I can't attest to every...
You're not being very clear.
Sure.
Please.
So there was a document that is circulating right now that is really big. It's going around everywhere. People are asking and
What is
wondering.
this document?
It's called the Wilson Memo, is how you can find it online, or the Wilson Leak.
There it is. Jimmy's got it. The Wilson Memorandum. Use of human volunteers.
No,
I just wanted to make sure that was it. Yeah.
No, that's not it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Admiral Wilson meets with this scientist, and they have this discussion, oddly enough, at special projects at EG&G. And if I remember, the document is from 2001. I'm telling everybody right now, it's real. And we'll see. My history is pretty good with saying if something's real or not, right? So here we go. The document comes out. They meet at EG&G Special Projects. In 1989, they stumble into a problem. This happens. They put the technology away, and then they bring it back out and see if material science has caught up and if they can make any progress. So this document kind of talks about this process. The big thing I get from it, and a lot of it's vindicating to Bob, and one of the things it's vindicating besides the EG&G thing, is that private industry, so this guy's an admiral, and he says, I found out about your SAP, your Special Access Program. I need to know about it. And he's going to a private part of industry, and he is denied access. And he says, I should be running this program. And they were able to deny him access. So I think the takeaway here is, check it out. I'm telling you that is an actual correct, that is a leak. Now, everything said in that document, I don't know.
What are you talking about? What is said in that document?
It's between a scientist and an admiral that are sitting, and they're having a meeting, and they're talking about the search for the UFO subject, the search to get special access program access to all of these different things like reverse engineering programs. So in this document, they talk about it. I believe that this document, the person that went was employed by Robert Bigelow, one of the guys that has a couple of orbiting satellites and all that stuff.
He's the guy at Skinwalker Ranch.
No, he's not. He was the guy that owned
He used to
Skinwalker.
own it. Okay.
Yeah, he used to own it. There's a new owner, and I interviewed him for my other film, but there's a new owner, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that soon. But there's stuff that you'll be hearing about Skinwalker Ranch soon because there's a new owner. Anyway, the whole point of this insertion here is just that document kind of validates a lot of this idea Bob just said, that they make a little progress, then they can't go anywhere. They tuck it away, and then they bring it back out, 10 years later and start working on it. What is the limiting factor? I think Bob should speak on this, but it's the material science.
Yeah, it's really where physics is. So I can see them doing that. I mean, I didn't have any information on that, but I think what George uncovered is probably accurate, that, we try and do what we can, and once we reach a roadblock going, we really can't figure it out, it's just friggin' put the thing away, wait for science to catch up, and, a decade later, let's take the project out again and see, all right, now where can we go?
But there's got to be someone who remains informed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you've got your scientists like you and Barry. You got your people that you compartmentalize. You got these people working on this
there
project.
has some people that know everything.
You've got security, and then someone's going to be on the outside saying, hey, we need people to guard this building. Don't let anybody in for 10 years.
I think a lot of that is private industry, and I think that's how they keep it. Yeah, I think that's how they because the government is just so leaky. I think that's kind of what they're doing.
That's what the document proves. You just articulated that it is in control of private industry.
What? Some aerospace company? I
don't know.
Yeah, they would. The guy admiral wouldn't name it in the car in the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So they still have these things supposedly.
I would get. I mean, I don't have any information on that.
Have you ever asked anyone that has any inkling of idea of where they got them or how they got them?
No, but some must have been said to me from Barry, but it was just too long ago, and I can't quite remember what was said, but it just left a seed in my mind. I think at least one of them was part of an archaeological dig. So it's old. At least one of them is old. I don't know if it was the one I worked on, but I remember something to do with an archaeological dig.
Whoa.
So that means it's not just old, it's ancient.
Yeah. Right?
As all of it would. Yeah.
That tripped me out when he did that for the first time.
Yeah. That's a fight right
Yeah.
there. Just a couple of dudes with some brushes looking for a Tyrannosaurus Rex bone. They
And-
hit metal.
And when find it, that they have 9 of them.
Yeah.
Well, how could we have not heard about that? What about the guys with the brushes? How could
Yeah.
you uncover something like that? And
Well, Joe's newspaper at home does. I mean, they said it on that first.
Oh, you mean the Roswell
Yeah,
Daily
yeah,
record?
the one you told me. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a cover. What is this here, Jamie?
This is the document, but I had to do some digging to find it.
Yeah, it's just kind of. Yeah, so this is where they meet at EG&G, and this is Adam Wilson, and there's a lot more coming out. Now, I want to be clear, George didn't put this out. He didn't leak this out to anybody. This is, I can tell you how
Who recorded this conversation?
So there's an employee of, at the time, Robert Bigelow.
And this is
Remember when he had that government contract called OSAP the world all knows about now, and he had NIDS that studied the ranch. So that $22 million, everybody is saying it was for ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. The $22 million was for OSAP that was pushed through Congress, 3 congressmen, right, an astronaut. It was pushed through. And that's what that $22 million, by the way, they spend more money on Viagra every year than they do studying UFOs if it was just this program, which I think is funny.
they probably a lot
Military.
more money from Viagra
They do.
than from UFOs, too.
Well, you know how it seeds into population. But anyway, this program, this is what was the mother program. So it got the $22 million. And really, it was to study Skinwalker Ranch. Oddly enough, that $22 million all was inspired by the phenomenon they were seeing at Skinwalker Ranch, because the scientists, they're seeing vehicles come through like a space in the sky.
Yeah, I went there
Right,
with Duncan.
yeah,
we interviewed a bunch of people that seemed full of shit, but a couple that didn't.
But
It was
the-
very, very interesting.
Totally. And if you look a lot of time in the area, I'm not talking about those stories. I'm saying there were scientists hired by the government, right, through Bigelow to study the ranch because they thought it was important. And, whatever. The point is that $22 million was to study that. Then we have ATIP, which is like an auxiliary kind of program of military sightings, like Commander Fravers and that sort of thing. This document is just one of those things that has now come forward that through the Bigelow studies, it was government funded, and then it was personally funded and then government funded. It's just one of those things that kind of shakes you because you got this military guy who can't get access because of the private industry that's holding these non-terrestrial materials, that they can't study it. So that's the claim right now. Give it some time, let people dig more into this. It's fascinating, man.
What are your thoughts on alien life, on life outside of this planet? Is this something you think about?
I think there must be. Even in the solar system, I would not be surprised if we find microbes on Mars or on some of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn where there's liquid water.
Like Europa.
Yeah. And the reason is, that if you think about, the reason I think that, and it's a guess, is because if you look at the history of life on Earth, then, so Earth formed and it was just there was no life. It was a ball of rock. And almost as soon as it cooled down, we see evidence of life. So certainly 3.8 billion years ago, possibly even further back than that, we see evidence of life on Earth. So somewhere along the line, geochemistry, active geochemistry became biochemistry on Earth. And we have some idea, that if you get gradients of temperature and acid and alkaline and the conditions that are naturally present on the surface of oceans, then complex carbon chemistry spontaneously happens. So we know that life, almost certainly we know that life began on Earth. I mean, the other option is it came from space or something like that, but it probably didn't, right? It probably began on Earth. So that means that at least here happened. And that we know that the conditions that led to the origin of life on Earth were present on Mars 4 billion years ago. And we know that they're present on Europa today. So I don't see that there's anything special. Life is just chemistry. And the idea that geochemistry becomes biochemistry is not fanciful because it happened here. So I think that given the same conditions, it would be surprising to me if the same thing didn't happen, in that life begins. So I that's one of to test that is great frontiers of science now. It's one of the great challenges, which is why another reason we're interested in Mars, because we know those conditions were there. We know there were what's called hydrothermal vent systems on the floors of oceans on Mars 3.8 or 4 billion years ago. So it would be good to know if what I've said is right. And the way we find out is to find life or evidence of past life.
Are you aware of the speculation that was going around? How recent was it, that Occupy thing, the octopus eggs? There was a group of scientists that were speculating that it's panspermia, the idea of panspermia, that it's possible that octopi had come from somewhere else. Some frozen eggs had actually come from somewhere else and landed on Earth. And these were like legitimate scientists that were contemplating it, not morons.
I don't think...
Have you seen this?
No, I didn't. But I mean, I think it's unlikely. So panspermia doesn't have to be unlikely.
Right.
I mean, for example, you might have
Sure.
seen the other day we found an Earth rock on the moon.
Yes.
Right. Well, it was back
Yeah.
on Earth now because the Apollo
Right.
astronauts brought it back, didn't they? It's 4 billion years old or something like that.
One of the oldest rocks ever found.
Yeah.
Right.
So we know that material gets transferred between planets. And so it's not inconceivable that microbes could survive that journey. Right? We know that microbes can survive in space, for example. So that isn't mad. It's
Right.
probably unlikely, but it's not mad. But with the octopus, I hadn't heard that. But the thing is that the octopus is still extremely similar biologically to us. I mean, the differences are negligible.
Yeah.
So it's still got the same energy system with the things called ATP and DNA and all that stuff. It's all very, very similar.
It was something about RNA and DNA. Did you find that article?
I'm looking at a different one from
So-
a different website. It's about the same thing. It has to do with the Cambrian explosion, and there were 33 authors on a paper that got published in the Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology that talked about this possibility. There are other people that disagree with it, though.
Right.
I mean, I suppose I haven't seen it. So I think it's unlikely because the octopus is extremely similar to us. So that suggests a common origin to me. That I suppose the counter argument you could advance would be there's only one way to do life. So you could say that actually,
right.
because the laws of physics and chemistry are the same everywhere. So maybe DNA is the only way to do it. So that's the way it gets done.
Which is why they're so similar to us.
Yeah, it's-
So alien as well.
They're not, though. You know, that's the thing about an octopus. That's why I'm surprised about it, because they're not that alien. They're very similar.
Well, their abilities. I mean, their ability to transform their outer texture and their color almost instantaneously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they have incredible camouflage abilities that really don't exist
Yeah.
in the mammalian world.
Yeah, cellular level. You look at an octopus cell under a microscope, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference
Right.
between an octopus cell and a human cell.
So the only way that would make sense is if all life comes from basically the same kind of building blocks and just varies depending upon the conditions and where it takes place.
I'm getting, but
Right.
yes, that must be the only way you could sustain that, given that they're so similar to us, because they really are, biochemically, is that's the only way it can be done, given the building block, the toolkit, the laws of nature, and the elements and so on that we have in our universe.
We have so many different life forms on our planet, but if we found anything that's remotely similar to what we have here on Earth on another planet, it would be such an incredible discovery. Like if we found a frog on the moon, I mean, the world would stop, right?
I'd be very surprised if we found a frog on the moon.
But I mean, found anything anywhere that is in any way similar, an
Well,
insect on Mars.
Well, this is, I mean, as I say, it'd be micro. I think it'd be single-celled things. Remember, I mean, you mentioned the Cambrian
Right.
explosion. So that is what we do know about Earth is that although life began, let's say, 3.8 billion years ago, it wasn't until around 600 million years ago or so, or at most 700, that you see any complex multicellular organisms at all. So for something like 3 billion years, it was single-celled alone. And that's one of the reasons why I would guess, if I had to guess, I would say that microbes would be common because life began very quickly on Earth. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find it on Mars. But complex life, multicellular life, insects, plants, intelligence, I would guess would be very rare because it took so long on Earth to get there. And it was just slime. About
Right.
3 billion years of slime.